Hi and welcome to Counting Coral Chats. I'm Jolyon Collier and I will be your host for today's interview. Here at Counting Coral, we like to reach out and interview people from all walks of life. Some folks are about ocean conservation and others can be marine biologists, scientists, and just your average person doing extraordinary things. We are always looking for people to join us in one of our chats. If you are interested in what we do and you would like to be on our show, you can email us at connect@countingcoral.com. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi and welcome to Counting Coral Chats with Shelby Thomas. Shelby specializes in marine conservation and restoration. She has worked on a variety of marine restoration projects from seagrass to scallops, oysters, and coral reefs. She's received her master's in marine ecology and is completing her PhD in marine biology. She works with the Ocean Rescue Alliance to develop innovative restoration technologies to restore our marine environments. Hi Shelby, how are you today?
Hi, good. How are you doing? Thank you for having me.
Oh, no, we appreciate you on and taking the time out to join us. So let's just dive right into this. Can you tell us a bit about the organization that you work for?
Certainly. So at the Ocean Rescue Alliance, our mission is to help save our oceans one reef at a time. We work to create innovative marine technologies to enhance and restore our marine environments. Some of those include coral restoration, as well as mangrove restoration and seawall enhancement. And also, we're more notably known to create artificial reefs. Our artificial reefs are really unique in a sense that we actually provide a sculptural component, so they're artistic artificial reefs, but they also have a really good biological importance where we provide micro and macro habitat for smaller fish species. So we're promoting fish biodiversity, while also having the opportunity to outplant coral on artificial reefs in areas that coral might not have been present before. And we implement other innovative techniques as well with different design techniques for the artificial reefs themselves. We also have an education program and citizen science program where we engage the youth and local communities in monitoring efforts, as well as doing beach cleanups and different events to educate and teach about marine conservation. We also really value research, so we encourage and also join with other organizations to advance research to keep continually modifying our designs.
That's amazing. I've seen the designs and I'll pull those designs up for the viewers so they can see some of the creations that you guys have been working on. I got to say, they look really quite amazing. And I think they even look better once kelp and seaweeds and sponges start to grow on them, because then they really do kind of just fit into the environment. So, we do the same thing in sculptural in the same type of sculptural realm, but ours don't blend in at all. Ours kind of stand out a little bit. So I commend you for the blending in and making more natural reefs. They do look really cool. Now you've got some technologies in there that are pretty unique. Could you explain a couple of those technologies that you apply to those sculptures?
Sure. So some of the technologies include the coral lock, which was designed by reef cells. And this essentially is a fragmented coral plug that has a threaded receiver. And we can either embed these or attach them to any of our artificial reefs and actually natural reefs as well. And this enables us to simply attach a coral by screwing them into our reef receivers. So that essentially eases the coral restoration process and increases the amount of corals we can outplant at one time, and also reduces the time to do so. It also eliminates the use of any epoxy or cement on coral reefs. So if we actually work with coral restoration practitioners, they can grow the corals on these frag plugs in the nurseries and then simply just outplant them on the reef by screwing them into the receivers. And we've actually been working with the Coral Restoration Foundation down in the Florida Keys, as well as the University of Miami, to do this actually on natural reefs with our mini habitat modules. So we're really looking forward to see those results, and we're continuing to modify new designs moving forward.
That's great. I get the concept of like the male and the female and they lock together, and I get the concept of that being in a sculpture. How does the female part go or the male part go onto the reef? Do you have to drill a little hole and then pop it in, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have a few different techniques, and that's what we're actually working with the University of Miami to test the different attachment strategies. So one of them is actually using a threaded male receiver that we can cement down to the reef. And this allows us not to have to drill in and impact the reef integrity. A lot of traditional methods actually will scour scour or drill and tap into the existing reef structure. And some of the problems that there's been resistance to that is just because it can impact the integrity of the actual existing reef. Even though it's dead, we don't want to really impact that so it doesn't further degrade. So we're looking at that as the primary strategy of attachment, but we could potentially look at either drilling in plugs further with that male receiver, or just simply cementing the dome structure to the reef itself.
Okay, so what are some of the benefits to your work that brings to a reef? I mean, could you explain that for the viewers? Because a lot of people don't quite understand coral. They don't understand what is going on with coral. It's just such a foreign thing to them. Could you run us through how that works for you guys in Florida?
Definitely. So coral reefs are so valuable to many ecosystems. They're the most biodiverse ecosystem in the world, and unfortunately they've been degrading and face so many impacts that we are needing to, there's so many challenges that we need to face to help address coral restoration efforts. And just like you guys, we're wanting to get out as many corals as we can and help contribute to coral restoration. One of the innovative things with our artificial reef designs is the ability to connect people while also providing biologically important habitats. So as reefs degrade, unfortunately, we need to have some type of backup substrate that can provide that secondary habitat for those fish species that are now losing their homes. So that's one purpose of our artificial reefs, is being able to provide that fish habitat and also give us the opportunity to outplant corals in new areas. So we can actually translocate corals more northward, where there's a bunch of translocation studies being conducted in the Keys, where they're discussing moving certain species of interest more northward to see if that may impact their distributions. So that's one advantage that we'd be able to have, is actually deploying these reefs where it's necessary, making specific species modifications for both corals and fish. So we really can take that targeted approach. And having our sculptural elements and artistic reefs enables us to attract ecotourism while also alleviating pressures off of natural reefs. So there's a big draw for that. It actually can impact the local community by boosting economic incentives to actually get divers to come out, helping fund dive shops as well as hotels, and really connecting and engaging the local community.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think we have kind of similar models with both of our organizations. And it is fascinating that people don't necessarily understand that once a coral reef goes, the fish go. And then those fish, they don't necessarily go, they'll move on somewhere else, or they might perish or just demise. But a lot of people don't understand that these fish actually grow up, go into the ocean, get caught, and go on their dinner plate. So it's a very important thing that you're actually establishing habitat. And that's something you guys do a little bit differently, is your sculptures create that habitat for those fish to feel protected. Even though there might not be coral planted on them at that specific moment, it might take you a few months to get those plant outs going, so that coral can then grow again and then be transplanted back out onto the primary reef. But it's a really good way to get homes built for fish. And guess what? Divers don't want to see no fish, dead reefs. So it's a great thing that you're incorporating, is these beautiful sculptures, so fish can be there and divers can then come out and go, oh, this is amazing. And much to the point we said earlier, your reefs do really blend in and you look kind of natural after a while, even though they're really cool designs. But there's another little element to this. You have an initiative called the 1,000 Mermaids. Is that part of what you guys are doing, or is that a separate thing? Could you talk about that plan?
Yeah, definitely. So the 1,000 Mermaids was actually our first started project for artificial reefs. And that was to use, actually, we had a founding artist who sculpted people as his primary art form. And he had a customer who wanted his wife casted as a mermaid to put at the end of his dock by his yacht in Miami Beach. And it took them months to create this lifelike sculpture. And they came back to him months later and asked, we're like, we have this sculpture ready. And he's like, well, unfortunately, I'm losing my house, lost my yacht, lost my wife, and he's going to prison. So he's a Miami scammer. They're like, well, what do we do with this sculpture? And he's like, well, just throw it in the ocean. He's like, you know what? That's a good idea. And that sparked this artist's imagination, like, well, maybe we can use this as habitat and help start a marine conservation movement. And that's how the 1,000 Mermaids project started. I got involved as the director of research and really started pushing the initiatives of design modifications to create more beneficial biological habitat for fish. And we're using that mermaid as a way to really connect people and create a unique dive site. So the Thousand Mermaids project's off of Riviera Beach, Florida. And we currently have 18 mermaids deployed, and the goal is to get to 1,000 over time, which we certainly will. We just actually got 2 more funded reef builds to continue the mermaids projects in different counties. So we'll be able to visit mermaids throughout Florida and hopefully internationally as well eventually. But our goal is to create more unique dive sites throughout the world, so that each one's unique and also can make a cultural impact. For example, we just started working with Beyond Coral Foundation in Tulum, Mexico, and they have a coral nursery as well as a Mayan cultural center that they're building off of Tulum, which we will then be building an artificial reef that's going to be Mayan themed, where we're going to build an artificial reef that's designed as a dragon for the dragon god. So that's going to be really interesting, impactful site to be able to connect to local culture, history, and the community. And just as you guys do, art can be so inspiring and empowering, and gives us the ability to reach more people than you typically could. There's the ocean's out of sight, out of mind for many people, and we're trying to help fix that and make it a more personalized connection to the ocean. And the Thousand Mermaid site is an example of one of those that we strive to use that mermaid symbol as a way to connect people.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, that sounds fun. I want to go to Tulum.
Yeah.
Can I help?
Yeah, definitely. We're actually going this weekend. We're leaving for Art With Me, if you've heard of that.
No, I haven't.
We're going to be doing it. We're doing a fundraising event to raise money for that artificial reef build.
Oh, fantastic. Well,
Yeah.
near the end of this interview, maybe you could let us know how people can get involved in that. But
Definitely.
to the point of the 1,000 mermaids, so your natural reefs do blend in, and now these mermaids stand out a little bit. And I think that's one of the things that we share in how we approach things is, people can take a picture of a piece of reef or a piece of coral on a fish, and it doesn't really do much to inspire imagination anymore because so many people have seen it, and it just kind of falls flat. But when you see an amazing mermaid poking up out of the water, that sends a little bit of a different message, and the curiosity is then sparked within people to go, well, what's that doing there? What is going on? And then that opens up the dialogue for you to be able to explain to people that there is a crisis going on and action needs to be taken. So to that kind of point, if someone's tuning in and they want to work with coral, how would they be able to do that? Can they just go off and create their own reef? Any advice for people?
Yeah, definitely. So we have a lot of ways people can get involved, from even a small scale of donating or even adopt a coral program that we're launching as we're starting to get some corals out on our reefs. We're actually looking at in 2021, beginning of 2021, we're added to a special activities license to outplant corals of opportunity in our Broward County sites. So we're looking to expand that to other reef sites as well. So we can actually have the donated corals from people either online or virtually, and we can show them each coral that we're outplanting. They can also come and help. We have a lot of other monitoring dives as well as coral outplanting opportunities once that comes up. But we also have the ability to create either a celebratory plaque or memorial that each one of those comes with outplanting coral. And so we have anything that ranges from a few $100s to you can create your own individualized sculpture or family reef. So there's a lot of options of ways to get involved, whether that's just volunteering your time or donating.
So people could donate some money towards a plaque, have a memorial plaque placed somewhere on a reef in Florida, off of Florida, correct?
Yeah, and it can be potentially off of any of our sites that we extend, but currently our sites are only in Florida.
Yeah, you're keeping it local, and think globally, keep it local.
Yes. Would love to expand.
So from our perspective, one of the big challenges we have is the engineering for storms and stuff like that. What type of, and you're currently having what are you having now? A cyclone, do you call it out there, or?
The hurricanes. Hurricane, right? We're amidst hurricane season. So yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of the sites depend on, they're at different depths. So the shallower you are, the more stability tests and analyses you need to be conducted. All of our base modules have stability tests conducted that we've worked with the University of Miami on, and they're done through wave tanks and different simulations to ensure that they won't move or sink. And depending on the location, especially in Florida, there's a lot of sediment movement. So in South Florida, especially with these storms, just the placement is really critical. So a lot of that's done through different county permits, and they have a lot of other environmental impact assessments and things that are conducted on our site locations. So we currently have been operating off of already existing permits from different counties, and Florida's got a lot of those, as I'm sure everywhere else does. Other countries work a little bit differently. So we're unique in Florida to where each county actually owns the permitted sites for that prospective area.
So you have to work with each county for each permission. Yeah.
Yeah. And they also work with the Army Corps of Engineers. So there's a lot, kind of a tier of approvals that come to each site, but we have the ability to really put any artificial reefs throughout Florida. It's just getting the funding to construct the reefs. Honestly, the permitting is a little bit more easy to get versus getting the whole reef funded and deployed.
Yeah, you know, we're facing the same battle. It's not the fact we can't design them, build them, install them. You just got to raise the money to be able to do it. But for people that are not too aware of how ocean currents work, and I'll just give a brief example based on what you were saying. So at depth, certain currents don't move as fast, and in shallower areas they do, and there might be more sedimentation. But also in certain areas around the world, you have reefs that break that. So just for people that are tuning in, sometimes you can put them really, really deep and they won't be affected by a storm. Sometimes you can be shallow, but in a protected area won't, you know, and it is a tricky thing to be able to pick those reefs correctly. So you're installing the correct art piece so you don't damage the now growing coral reefs that you've planted or upset the fish in those local areas, right?
Definitely. Yeah. And just as you said, each site, it's site specific. So for example, we're looking at more shallow snorkel reefs on the west coast of Florida. There's not as much wave action and drastic movement, although we are looking at some snorkel reefs near Hollywood Beach area. It's just dependent on those wave and currents that are in the area. Yeah,
that's amazing. So how is the funding going for you guys? How could people reach out to you and maybe get a little bit of, give you guys a little bit of support? How can people find you, and what's the easiest way? What do you think the easiest way somebody could support you guys?
The easiest way would definitely be donating online. We also have t-shirts and things available on our shops. We can also, any kind of funds helps from donating online, but they can also create their own reef if they're interested, as well as visit any of our reefs. Whether you're just diving, we work with a lot of local dive shops, and it's been nice to see that local impact. And just kind of as you guys are doing, you're really helping create a sustainable business for the local community. And I really love that you guys are doing that in other developing countries, which is one of our goals that we'd like to do moving forward. Just like in Mexico, a lot of these communities' livelihoods depends on tourism and the reefs themselves. So it's very important to help create these reefs. And we're hoping to get enough funding even through the US to be able to extend and do this in areas that really, really need this.
Do you have any focus down in the Bahamas or any of those Caribbean countries?
Yeah, we're looking at potentially Barbuda, which is a smaller Caribbean island, and we're actually looking through a private foundation to hopefully fund that. We've put out some grants to help with some other islands as well, so we're waiting to hear back for that. But certainly any donations can be site specific if people are wanting to help fundraise.
Yeah, because I know those guys get hit hard down there, especially in times like this. I mean, pretty much everywhere is being hit hard, but you know, a lot of those Caribbean countries, you know, they're solely reliant on people coming to dive and tourists. And obviously, if there's no reefs around, then they suffer even more. So it's a very important thing for us to understand that not just within the US, but outside of the US, if we can fund those projects and actually push those initiatives somewhere else, we're doing a lot of good for other countries and other communities. And as you said, you know, small communities can suffer way larger than developed countries in non-developed countries. So it's a great thing that you guys could expand down there and start working in those areas.
Yeah, definitely. And another highlight of some of our design modifications is that ability to also serve as a storm buffer. So we're making specific modules that are designed for nearshore environments to hopefully reduce that wave action. And we're working on studies with other universities to help assess that as we're moving forward with new projects, and are always open to collaboration. And it'd be great to have a joint site with you guys in the future to mix everything. And we're just really about supporting and collaborating with other organizations to get to the same goal effectively and help each other.
Yeah, I mean, to the point, so a lot of people don't understand that coral reefs are also a protected kind of buffer for wave action that would end up going into island nations or coastal communities. So it's very important that you build structures to be able to support those storms coming in, because storms are getting worse and worse. And, you know, without coral reefs, ultimately they are the frontline kind of workers, essentially, to stop these storm surges coming in, taking out sandbars, taking out communities. So it's very important, especially I think in Florida is having some huge issues with ocean rising and flooding of Florida, essentially. So it's very important to stop those tidal surges. So that's great you guys are working on that. And a lot of people don't understand that coral reefs do have a huge importance for that.
Certainly, yeah. And if we could divert some of in many areas, especially Florida as well, beach renourishment is very popular, where they'll dredge offshore for sand and sediment, and they'll bring it onshore so they maintain those beaches. But unfortunately, with any storm, that just gets wiped away, and millions of dollars just go right back into the ocean, and they redo it again, instead of really building up that bulk of creating a barrier to prevent that. So I think there's been a lot of, especially more policy push to start looking at other alternatives, because beach renourishment's been done throughout many coastline communities for years and years, and not as many artificial reef structure builds specifically designed to reduce storm buffers. So we're hoping to start expanding, assessing that in different counties.
Yeah, it is a controversial topic out your way, because to your point, they're spending millions of dollars to put sand on a beach that's washed away in one storm. And it's like, well, you could invest a little bit more money and, you know, place them out offshore a little bit to slow down those surges and coming in. I mean, it's an amazing job that coral reefs do, right? So unfortunately, we do have oceans rising now, and those coral reefs are not going to do such a good job as they used to be able to, as thermal expansion keeps growing and getting worse in our environment. So that's great work you guys are doing, and I look forward to and hope we can work together in the future. And a lot of people that may be tuning in think, well, you guys are competitors essentially, but that's not the way we view it. You know, we're all in this game together to be able to grow coral and keep this life form alive, and also help communities out around the world. So I thank you so much for joining us, and we'll set any links for your websites and how people can help in the various little locations. At the end of this video, we'll put in those links too. So thank you so much, Shelby. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. You've been very informative, and we hope that you have success with your projects in the near future.
Thank you so much. We hope to work with you guys soon. Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Thanks.
Counting Coral relies on public support. If you would like to donate to Counting Coral and help out with the coral crisis, please see the link in the comments section if you are on YouTube, link in the bio if you're on Instagram, link in the post section if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn. The best way to follow us for Counting Coral Chats is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell. When you hit the bell, you will be notified every time we post new content.